Welcome in, everybody. Happy Wednesday. You made it to the ACC Multiclass Championship here at Trackalicious. Between the GT3s and the GT4s, tonight we go into round number 3 at Kyalami, track in South Africa. Nice and twisty, lots of elevation changes, bit of a roller coaster ride all the way throughout the lap. And at the end, we will have a marble race to reveal the mystery track for next week's round number 4 contest for the Wednesday Multi-Class Championship. I am Kuja Terekov, and we are going to head down to the track where the GT4s are getting out underway. Justin Beachley working his way out onto the track, out of the pit lane, race winner from last week in the GT4s at least, looking to capitalize on another win in a nice and wet track at Kyalami here this evening. 20 minutes of qualifying on the clock. First 10 minutes are for the GT4s to determine their grid order, and the last 10 minutes will be for the GT3s for their qualifying session. Welcome in, everybody. Hope you've been having a good week so far. Happy to have you with us. Sorry, excuse me, folks. Almost choked on my water there. But yes, happy to have you here at the GT4s out on track. First 10 minutes will be for them. And then we'll have GT3s. How did you do that, Hezzy? How did you load in the wrong car, my friend? And also, how did it let you in with the wrong car? Teemu Pessinen across the line first to begin his first push lap of the session. Firebrand out in full force here tonight. It's Teemu Pessinen squirrely on the brakes going into turn 2. Looking nice and controlled in the first sector as he gets the power down out of turn 4. Continues over the crest into Sunset Corner. Very quick right-hander. Going into a tight left, down a few gears on the brakes. And this is where the roller coaster ride really happens. Left hill, or left-hander down the hill, followed into a valley before it shoots you right back up, and you want to get all the power down out of the right-hander as possible, up the hill, tight hairpin at the top, before shooting back down the hill. Flat out left-hander in the dry, much more different situation with the pouring rain. As Teemu Pessinen heads into the final sector. And now the iconic corner around Kyalami. Cheetah with the huge sausage curb protecting the outside, gravel trap on the outside. Very tight walls. If the back end goes, it is very difficult to recover and keep it out of the wall. But no dramas there for Pessinen. Out of the final corner he goes. And it's a 156.682 for the rest of the grid. to chase down where will Firebrand Giancarlo Bottini go. He's about 1.8 seconds down the road. Pottsweaver slots in between the two Ginettas with Justin Beachley going 0.003 of a second slower than Teemu Pessinen's time. Andres Mostachero gets ahead of Bottini to 4th. Dr. Porkchop out of the final corner. And Porkchop goes up to 6th, about 0.4 behind Giancarlo Bottini. Now Jacobs in the Camaro.
Holy smokes!
Cheers, Marco. Welcome back to the podium. And you have been there for quite some time, 34 months, almost 3 years of consistent podium sitting. Cheers to you, and good luck in the qualifying session. If you're even joining tonight, you are here tonight. Yes, that's correct. Nice and pouring rain. No valid lap on the board yet for Niall Jacobs. As the grid goes through the final sector once more. As Giancarlo Bottini goes all over the track in the Firebrand Ginetta. Pottsweaver trying to put down a good lap here. Certainly won't like the Ginetta being all over the road as he takes to the gravel out of Cheetah. And Pottsweaver goes wide at the final corner, invalidating his lap. So he will have all the work to do once more, with Justin Beachley across the line, unable to improve. Pessinen, though, improves the benchmark to a 55.7, nearly a second separating him from Justin Beachley in second place. Mostachero improves by a few tenths of a second, separating the gap to Giancarlo Bottini to half a second. Alex Freeman currently sitting in 4th. Two Aston Martins on the second row. Can he get ahead of Pottsweaver? About 0.3 ahead of him. About a 1/10 of an improvement for Alex Freeman. 3 minutes left, just 2 laps left. Very quick 10-minute session here. As Niall Jacobs gets on the board. Slightly smaller GT4 grid, 8 of the GT4s on track tonight. Excuse me, make that 9. Nathan Fox joining as well. Currently, no valid lap on the board for the number 60 McLaren. And as he shoots down the hill, we'll ride on board with Nathan. And having to lift and go into the gravel is Nathan Fox, but getting it slowed down and keeping it out of the wall. So you have to line up another go around with Andres Mostachero going through. And now Justin Beachley looking for an improvement. Pottsweaver got very close to getting past Justin Beachley, but a 0.3 of an improvement for the AMG on that lap. Sees the gap grow to the Aston Martins on the second row. Still a lot of work, though, for Justin to try and get to that top spot. 6.5 to provisional pole sitter Teemu Pessinen. It's a big improvement from Dr. Porkchop. Gains about 0.7. Gets to about 1.5 behind Andres Mostachero's time. And of course, this is the qualifying, still 75 minutes of racing to go. With lots of strategies to consider in that mix as well. Perhaps we might see some different weather. But at the moment, full wet qualifying. Nothing drying up in the next 30 minutes. So these are the conditions for the qualifying session. Seconds left for the GT4s in their efforts to try and get the fastest lap on the board and start up as high as they possibly can for the race coming up. And now Potts Weaver 3/10 behind Justin Beachley as Teemu Pessinen improves the benchmark to a 155.527, 8/10 clear of Justin Beachley. Make that 8.5 clear of Potts Weaver, who does get the Aston Martin up to second place. Justin Beachley can't answer because the AMG returned back to the pits. Can Andres Mostuchero find 6/10 of a second and get ahead of Giancarlo Bottini? He finds 7/10 of a second to get ahead of the Firebrand Ginetta. Now the last GT4 with a possible response is Alex Freeman. The front end a little bit busted on his Aston Martin as he runs wide out of Cheetah, invalidating the lap and ending his qualifying session right then and there. Al Jacobs not on a valid lap as it looks like. But the software is wrong sometimes, so we'll see where he may end up as we go across the line here. Power sliding on the exit. No improvements there for Niall Jacobs. He will start from 8th place as the GT3s begin to work their way into the final part of the lap, where they will begin their qualifying session. There is Morico in the East Siders livery, representing the Need for Speed Underground franchise. Two GTRs. Bit of an unfamiliar sight as the GT3s wind their way up and begin their first qualifying laps of the evening. Devin Anthony leads the way in the 664 Porsche as he is through the first sector. You can hear that screaming flat 6 from on board as we go through the Sector 2 roller coaster ride. Just easing it onto the power. You want to try to get on the power as early as possible, though. Quite a bit of elevation rise up the hill into the tight hairpin at the top before slingshotting back down. We'll see what it's like for Devin Anthony through what would be a flat left-hander, having to lift just a touch before going into the braking zone at turn 12. Now just the final corner remaining for the Porsche. He will be the first one to get a time on the board. It's a 150.8 from Devin Anthony. And Kevin Yu able to eclipse that time. It goes to a 150.5, exactly 3/10 ahead of Devin Anthony. And then we got Sam Zawisa improving to the top. Eric Vanderbilt in the number 7 Lamborghini with Hezzy Thomas ahead of him. As Vanderbilt gets a time on the board. Or excuse me, that was the McLaren of Paisa up ahead. Still waiting for some times for the GT3 drivers. Professor Chronotis being one of those drivers in the 42 Ferrari. We've got the 52 Ferrari currently sitting on provisional pole. Kevin Yu having to go back to the pits. There's 5 minutes left now for the GT3s. These sessions go by quick. As Professor Chronotis can't quite get a valid lap on the board just yet. We'll have to go around once more. Can Sarah Liu get a lap on the board out of the final corner nice and tidy? And the 923 goes to the very top. It's a 149.5 from the Nissan. Rally Duchy using the M6. That's an unfamiliar sight these days, but well done to Rally Duchy to use that car. As Rally Duchy goes up to 8th place with Hezzy Thomas about 1/10 or 1 second behind Rally Duchy's time. As it stands, we got Sarah Liu on the top with Zawisa in second, Kevin Yu out of the pits in third. Moriko in the second, Nissan in fourth, Devin Anthony fifth, Ray Roman sixth, Paisa seventh, Rally Duchy eighth, Hezzy Thomas in ninth. Still waiting on times from Professor Chronotis. Eric Vanderbilt looking for an improvement as well. He got a 53.4 on his previous lap, just wasn't valid. And that lap would have put him inside the top 5. They're just looking to keep it within track limits as Professor Chronotis puts his Ferrari onto the front row. About a 10th behind Sarah Liu's provisional pole time. And Sam Zawisa is now the best Ferrari on the grid as Sarah Liu improves the benchmark altogether to a 148.895. Sam Zawisa about 6.5 tenths behind the provisional pole time, and Professor Chronotis just 0.02 of a second behind Sam Zawisa, or 0.03 of a second, I should say. So now Eric Vanderbilt to the line. Can he get a valid lap on the board here? He propels himself to 7th place behind Moriko Yatanashi and ahead of Ray Robin. Devin Anthony moved up to 4th, ahead of Kevin Yu. The 95 BMW having to take a trip to the pit lane during the qualifying session, but now back out on track and in the closing stages, looking to get back into the top 5. Yeah, the M6 certainly is quite something. It was a pretty good car back when it was BOP'd. to back when it was a new car. But then the M4 took over, and that kind of remained the benchmark BMW. Devin Anthony to the line with Professor Chronotis up ahead, improving past Sam Zawisa, and Devin Anthony doing the same in the Porsche. So Zawisa to the line, can't get an improvement on this lap, but he did cross the line before time expires. So it's a do or die lap for the 52 Ferrari. Yeah, I'm surprised they don't like fill your car with helium or something to make it as light as possible. Vanderbilt to the line. Can he improve past Kevin Yu? Not quite. He got very close. 7th will be the highest that the Lamborghini will finish, I believe, unless he got across the line before the checkered flag wave, and it looks like he did, because he's going to continue pushing on. So we'll check back in with the Lamborghini as Kevin Yu runs a little bit deep into turn 13. Now Kevin Yu on his final flying lap attempt. Can he get a better lap on the board than he has already? Coming up to the line. It's not going to be an improvement for Kevin Yu. And that is going to be the qualifying session done. On to the race we go.
Alright, we have some wet conditions. Watch out for curves and exit, and remember to brake early.
Three minutes for the drivers to get their setups loaded, get the race fuel, or get the necessary race fuel in the car. And we will begin with the GT4 grid walk. On pole position in the 111 Firebrand Ginetta, Teemu Pessinen will lead the way in the buzzing GT4 category. Joining him on the front row is Potts Weber in the In-N-Out Motorsports number 13 Aston Martin. Race winner from last week, Justin Beachley, starts from 3rd in the Beach GT number 18 AMG, and he's got friend and rival Alex Freeman alongside him in the AF Sport number 22 Aston Martin. Andres Mostachero starts from 5th in the 105 Naps Camaro, and he's got Giancarlo Bottini with him on the 3rd row in the Firebrand number 57 Ginetta. In 7th, Dr. Porkchop starts in the 71 Chop Shop Racing Aston Martin, with Niall Jacobs in 8th in the Susquehanna Racing Team number 47 Camaro. And Nathan Fox starts from 9th in the number 60 Race Trim McLaren. So 9 cars taking part in the GT4s, and the GT3 field stacks up as follows. Sarah Liu in a familiar position on pole in the Blade Runner 923 Nissan. She'll have Professor Chronotis alongside for company on the front row in the number 42 Ferrari. He's hoping to use that blue shell, but probably not take out the leader, but at least get past. Then Devin Anthony starts from 3rd in the Noobs Are Us 664 Porsche, with Sam Zawisa next to him in 4th in the number 52 York Pearl Ferrari. Moriko Yatanashi with the top 5 start in the Eastsiders GT3 Nissan GTR number 530. Kevin Yu starts from 6th in the number 95 BMW, with Eric Vanderbilt starting from 7th in the number 7 Trackalicious Lambo NLR. Ray Roman in 8th in the 117 BMW M4, with Jay Paisa in 9th in the JP with Samantha Tan Racing 135 McLaren. Then Rally Dutchy in the Ninetails Racing 621 BMW M6, with Hezzy Thomas rounding out the GT3 field in the Sox VTuber Agency Racing 59 Lamborghini. Sarah Liu off and running from the front of the grid. Cheers for the hydrate, Mr. Zanderzone. Got some hot tea on offer. It's almost out already. And we haven't even started the racing. So the Blade Runner Nissan certainly kicking up a good bit of spray. Will we see any changing conditions throughout the race? At the moment, predicted to be wet 30 minutes into the race. Will the forecast measure up to what it's saying, or will we have some varying conditions for the drivers to try and navigate? Teemu Pesinen just getting to sunset now. And even at slow speeds, the spray is getting really kicked up. Fortunately for Pesinen, the GT3 field should scoot away and leave him with some clean air in front. Try and challenge for the race win. After starting on the top spot in the GT4s, can Pesinen convert it into the race win? And down the hill into Sector 3 we go. The grid begins to form up in zipper formation. Getting any last-minute preparations done onto the car. Getting the traction control levels, the ABS levels. Their brake bias as the Camaro of Andres Mostachero runs into the gravel, but avoids any sort of wall contact. Fortunately for him. As the grid goes through Cheetah, side by side, who will get the best run into turn 2? Turn 1, technically the right-hand kink on the approach to the heavy braking zone to turn 2. Out of the final corner we go, lined up 2 by 2. Sarah Liu leads the way from the front. Professor Chronotis in second in the Ferrari, hoping to challenge that. Sam Zawisa a little bit out of position. The BMW of Kevin Yu looking to challenge that right away, and Sarah Liu gets a great start. It's a little bit less so for Professor Chronotis as he's got Devin Anthony and Sam Zawisa trying to go around the outside contact between Zawisa and Devin Anthony, but both of them still pointing in the correct direction. And further back in the GT4s, Teemu Pesinen still leads the way, and Andres Mostachero gets a big jump as Hezi Thomas stranded at the side of or at the middle of the track, I should say. Justin Beachley going into the Lamborghini and just now getting recovered. And it is the same story for Justin Beachley as it was last week, as Andres Mostachero trying to challenge the race leader, Teemu Pesinen, for the position. It was a great start from Zawisa to get ahead of Devin Anthony in the 2 BMWs. Now challenging for position, Ray Roman with a great start from 8th. Got into the top 5. Kevin Yu remains in the position he started in 6th, as he now has the exact same car up ahead of him as Ray Roman goes into the grass, starts spinning, and Kevin Yu tapping the back of the BMW as Ray Roman goes heavily into the wall. The 2 Aston Martins battling for position in the GT4 class. Alex Freeman getting a great start. He's up to 3rd. Potts Weaver shuffled down to 4th, losing a few places on the opening lap. The Still a long way to go in this one. Oh, and there's the BMW of Rally Dutchy going slowly on the exit of Cheetah. Moriko Yatanashi side by side with Ray Roman. The Nissan has the inside into turn 2. Damage carried by Ray Roman on the front end of his BMW. When is going to be the time for him to pit to consider fixing those repairs and getting one of the 2 mandatory pit stops knocked out of the way? And so Sarah Liu, contact between the BMW and the Nissan. Moriko nearly getting unsettled on the exit of Sunset. As these two continue to battle, the McLaren of Jay Paisa will be thankful for that as Ray Roman goes deep and Moriko Yatanashi drifts through turn 9, but holds on to 8th place ahead of the BMW. In the other Nissan, Sarah Liu leads the way from Professor Chronotis in the Blue Shell Ferrari, who runs a little bit deep. Might allow Sam Zawisa an opportunity to challenge into the final corner as the 2 Ferraris are getting close to each other. Devin Anthony then in 4th, Kevin Yu in 5th, Eric Vanderbilt 6th, Jay Paisa in 7th, Moriko Yatanashi 8th, Ray Roman 9th. And then we have the GT4 leader Teemu Pesinen inside the top 10 with Andres Mostachero in 2nd, Alex Freeman in 3rd, Pottsweaver 4th. Niall Jacobs with a good start gets inside the top 5. And there's a 3-car battle here for position between the Camaro, Aston Martin, and Ginetta. And they are nearly going to run 3 wide. Niall Jacobs gets ahead of Dr. Porkchop, and Giancarlo Bottini is going to have to slot in behind the 2 cars ahead. And Justin Beachley is going to make this a 4-car battle as he wants to try and get past the cars and back into the front positions as quickly as he can after a bit of contact between him and some GT3 cars on the opening lap as Porkchop goes over the curbs very heavily through turns 3 and 4. Running a little bit wide, might allow Giancarlo Bottini an opportunity to fight him into Sunset. And he does get by before the braking zone. So Niall Jacobs leads in the Camaro in this 4-car battle as Justin Beachley sending it down the inside of Dr. Porkchop into turn 7, gets the move done, and that's a place gained for the AMG. Bottini and Jacobs, contact between the Camaro and the Ginetta, and Justin Beachley and Dr. Porkchop getting swallowed up in the incident as well. But I think it's going to be Bottini who's going to try to maintain position. Justin Beachley, bold move around the outside into the braking zone, more contact. He gets spun around and into the wall. And that is a significant amount of front-end damage now being carried by Justin Beachley. He will certainly have to make a visit to the pit lane as Jay Paisa trying to hold on to position from Moriko Yatanashi and just getting ahead before turn 5. But the Nissan wants to get a good run into Sunset. Taking the defensive line down the inside. It's going to be bold and brave if the Nissan wants to get it done around the outside, but thinking the better of it, looking for the over-under move, but that opportunity also not opening up for the Nissan. And as they head through the S's, Sam Zawisa must have had a bit of a moment as the 42 Ferrari gets shuffled down, and Devin Anthony moves down to 4th because Kevin Yu is on a charge. He is back into the podium places. So Sam Zawisa was running up in 3rd, drops back to 5th. Devin Anthony occupied that 3rd place position momentarily before Kevin Yu able to sweep on through, and now has a 5-second gap to try and make up to Professor Chronotis, sitting on that middle step of the podium. There is Justin Beachley emerging out of the pit lane. Dr. Porkchop taking a trip down the pits as well. So they have knocked off one of their 2 mandatory pit stops for the night. But always good to get that damage repaired. And oh no, Jay Paisa drops back into the GT4 field, as there may have been an incident. I don't want to say most likely. There may have been an incident in the battle with Moriko Yatanashi. But nonetheless, Jay Paisa shuffled down back to 13th overall and behind the 2 GT4 leaders. Devin Anthony having to go around the outside of Dr. Porkchop after serving the pit stop, coming into a bit of GT3 traffic here. Kevin Yu certainly seems to have turned it on in the race. The pace coming to the BMW, unlike in the qualifying session, having to take a trip to the pits and perhaps just getting a little bit out of sync and out of rhythm. But in the race, that BMW certainly turned it on, gaining 3 positions already and trying to eat into the time that Professor Chronotis was able to gain at the beginning. The gap is 5.8 seconds from Kevin Yu's BMW to Professor Chronotis in 2nd. Sarah Liu in the lead, 4.6 second gap to Professor Chronotis. The in-and-out Aston battling with the AF Sport of Alex Freeman up in front. 2 Astons starting near each other on the grid. Potts Weaver losing a few places, started from the front row in 2nd, getting shuffled back down to 4th, and Alex Freeman has remained in the same place that he started from 3rd. No, excuse me, Freeman has gained a position. From where he started. Oh no, a moment for Professor Chronotis. He's shuffled back down to 5th behind Sam Zawisa. These 2 were battling for 2nd and 3rd not even 10 minutes ago, and now Professor Chronotis behind Sam Zawisa in 5th. That'll move Kevin Yu up to 2nd and Devin Anthony into the final step of the podium. These wet conditions certainly tricky to negotiate for the drivers tonight. And the spray coming off the car is certainly not helping. Andres Mostachero in the red 105 Camaro runs in second place in the GT4s. And Alex Freeman now back on the tail. Or not back on the tail for the first time tonight of Andres Mostachero. And he hopes to take that second step of the podium away from the Camaro driver. Andres with a great start, up 3 places after starting from 5th. So can he hold off Alex Freeman? Alex Freeman with a drift through Sunset. Great control from the 22 to keep that car pointed in the right direction. Didn't lose a whole lot of time in the process either, but just touching a wheel onto that curb. Very slippery paint. Sees Alex Freeman lose the rear end momentarily, but regaining it with a good bit of skill as he tries to keep Spots Weaver behind and chase Andres Mostachero in front. Devin Anthony's trying to stay close to the back of Kevin Yu, staying within a second. The Ferrari of Sam Zawisa hoping to claw back into those podium positions, where he was running in 3rd momentarily at the beginning of the race. Spots Weaver closer than he was before on the previous lap, going into the heavy braking zone at turn 2, but can't capitalize. Similar machinery between himself and Alex Freeman in front. Perhaps just running slightly different setup tweaks. As there we see the lead Ginetta of the GT4's Teemu Pessinen enter Sunset, with Hezi Thomas in the 59 Lamborghini getting shuffled down at the start, trying to work his way through the GT4 field here. Two Ferraris close once again. Spots Weaver hoping to get a good run out of the final corner. He doesn't want to stick too close. Can't really see where he's going with the spray of Sam Zawisa in front. Pulling to the inside. Can he get the number 52 on the brakes and get back up to 4th? Of more contact. Side by side this time between Professor Chronotis and Zawisa. He allows the 52 to go back through, and he will have to try and fight that for that position once more. Sam Zawisa a touch wide into Sunset, but keeps it under control. Tries to keep as much speed as possible to keep Professor Chronotis behind. And out of the S's, Professor Chronotis onto the curbs and onto the grass, slowing down his momentum up the hill, as he can't fight for a move into the tight hairpin at the top of the hill at turn 10. He's going to try to challenge into turn 13. Nearly had the side-by-side lined up to get that move done. Not quite enough. Hezi Thomas gets through Andres Mostachero and Alex Freeman, releasing these cars to battle once more, and Alex Freeman runs wide, keeps it on the track, but loses the position to Potts Weaver. Oh, and Ezzy Thomas goes onto the grass. The Lamborghini having to take evasive action as he's going to get shuffled down behind these GT4s once more. So now it's Andres Mostachero. Needs to cover off Potts Weaver. Alex Freeman in the other GT4 Aston couldn't get by. Can Potts Weaver make an easier time of passing the Camaro? And the V8 power of the Camaro able to hold off the charge of Potts Weaver. He also has a V8 in his car, twin turbo, but just not matching the power of the American V8 at the front of Andres Mostachero's Camaro. And so after that moment, Alex Freeman returning to the pits, getting one of the two mandatory pit stops ticked off and dusted. He gets dropped, and the number 22 gets rolling and back onto the racing surface. The race still holding off the attack very well from the Aston of Potts Weaver. He had the pace of qualifying to start on the front row. Can he get back to the position he started this race? Minutes into the race so far, and we have had a significant number of position changes. But the two that remain unchanged are both of our pole sitters. Sarah Liu remains in the lead after 10 laps of running in the 923 Nissan and has a really strong 14-second gap over Kevin Yu in second place. And it's a similar story for Teemu Pessinen in the lead of the GT4 category. He's got an 8-second gap to Andres Mostachero, and Potts Weaver battling for second and third in their category. Both of the cars taking the curb very heavily at turn 5 as they look to cut down the lap as much as possible, with Andres maintaining position in front. Ezzy Thomas in the pits. As the Camaro seems to be pretty comfortable in defending in the straight line department through the curves. Potts Weaver able to gain a good amount of time. And out of the S's up the hill. He's closer than he was before. Potts Weaver trying to line up the move. The Camaro takes the defensive line, forces Potts Weaver the long way around. Can he get the over-under done? A slight tap onto the bumper of Andres Mostachero, but he keeps the car pointed forward and keeps second place. Andres running a little bit wide. He's going to try to keep as much speed as possible. We've seen him defend down the straights pretty well, but this time Potsweaver with a better run out of the final corner, much more slipstream. Andres once again taking the defensive line, forces Potsweaver onto the curbs and breaking on those curbs, really unsettling the Aston Martin, but they are going to continue to battle through turn 3 and through turn 4. Potsweaver almost had the side-by-side overlap he needed to send it through turn 4, but Andres Mostachero doing enough to hang on to second place. Once again into all the heavy braking zones. The Camaro just takes to the inside line. Very difficult in the wet conditions. Engine blown. Hezzy, what the heck happened there? And once again, side by side at the top of the hill, Potsweaver had the best opportunity on the previous lap, had a bit of contact with the bumper of Andres Mostachero, who just parked it on the apex. Didn't allow the Aston to get the over-under done he wanted. And once again, as they shoot back down the hill, the straight line speed of the Camaro helping out Andres defend second position. Right on board with the challenging Aston Martin. That'll do it, Hezzy. Yep. A bit of a panic downshift will certainly over-rev that thing and blow it right up. Andres, after running wide at turn 2, once again taking that defensive line and really not allowing Potsweaver to take any sort of inside line into any of the overtaking spots. There is the Nissan of Sarah Liu approaching Potsweaver and Andres Mostachero. As Sarah Liu now splits the two GT4s. Through the S's we go. Can Potsweaver follow the Nissan through? The Camaro forced to the outside. Potsweaver has the inside line, and Andres Mostachero runs a little bit deep. They're going to battle it out side by side down the hill. The straight line speed of the Camaro once again should try to help Andres Mostachero. There's side by side contact. Andres Mostachero, can he keep it out of the grass? He's on the grass, but he kept it out of the wall and down a position. But still in the race is the Camaro. And once again, we see that side-by-side contact at ACC just shoot a car off into the direction. But well done from the 105. Sees him still in this race. And not only is he still in the race, he's still right on the back of the Aston to try and challenge for second. Kevin Yu into the pits from second place in the GT3s. He was in a tight battle with Devin Anthony. Marco Yatanashi and Eric Vanderbilt battling for 6th place. What will now be 5th place as they get through Kevin Yu, stationary in his pit box. And Marco Yatanashi the long way around, tries to get the move done. Eric Vanderbilt still there on the apex, but Marco Yatanashi keeps the speed and keeps the momentum around the outside. That's a great move done by the Nissan to move up to 5th. And Vanderbilt's still not done, though. Thought about going down the inside of turn 7. Not a lot of room. Especially in the wet to try and force that move. So Andres Mostachero coming into the pits after losing the position to Potts Weaver a few laps ago. He will let the pit crew get to work and refuel the car, perhaps change the tires as well. With these 2 mandatory pit stops, they are required to refuel for a minimum of 25 seconds. And then it is up to the driver's discretion if they want to take fresh tires and add 5 seconds to their pit stop time. How often do you guys race? Pretty much every day of the week except for Saturday. Alex Freeman gets through. Alex Freeman, after running in some clean air, he was battling with Andres Mostachero and Potts Weaver, but he got the undercut done and now has track position on the 105. So yeah, Mondays and Wednesdays we run Assetto Corsa Competizione. Tuesdays and Fridays is Le Mans Ultimate. And then Thursdays and Sundays is iRacing. Lots of activity in the pits. Rally Dutchy in as well. As well as Jay Paisa and Potts Weaver. And how about that for a strategy for Kevin Yu? He got both of his pit stops done in the span of 2 laps. So the 95 BMW cleared to go to the end in a 45-minute stint for Kevin Yu. So now, this will be very interesting to see where Potts Weaver comes out in the battle between the Aston Martin of Alex Freeman and the Camaro of Andres Mostachero. Based on the pit stop times, they are on similar strategies. At least Alex Freeman and Andres Mostachero are. We'll have to wait and see if Potts Weaver's on the same. Potts Weaver looks like he took tires because he is behind the pair of competitors now occupying those podium positions in the GT4 class. So Potts Weaver with most likely a tire advantage. Professor Chronotis on the back of Devin Anthony for second. Neither driver yet to complete a mandatory pit stop. Welcome in Davey Norris and Raiders. Hope you guys had an excellent stream. You join us about halfway into, or a little less than halfway into our round number 3 at Kyalami in the ACC GT3 and GT4 Multiclass Championship. Professor Chronotis dives into the pit lane in the number 42 Ferrari. Welcome in, Raiders. Hope you guys are having a good evening or morning, wherever you may be. Happy to have you here at Trackalicious. As the gap's opening up just a touch after the pit lanes, Alex Freeman runs wide on the exit of Cheetah. That might allow Andres Mostachero to close in just a hair bit closer than he was before. There's the view from inside the Camaro. So now Jacobs also completing both of his mandatory pit stops already. As you can see, we have quite a variety of strategies. The top four in the GT3s yet to serve a single pit stop. Then you have Professor Chronotis, Moriko Yatanashi, Rally Duchy, and Jay Paisa serving one stop. And the Kevin Yu already in the pits twice, so he is cleared to go all the way to the end of this race. And it's a similar situation in the GT4 class. Teemu Pesinen leads the way, still yet to serve a single one of his two mandatory stops. Same with Firebrand teammate Giancarlo Bottini, who's now in second place in the GT4 class, but still yet to serve that mandatory, or any of the mandatory pit stops. Then you got Alex Freeman ahead of Andres Mostachero, ahead of Potts Weaver in their battle for the podium positions. Justin Beachley trying to recover from an early spin as well, same as Dr. Porkchop. They have already served a pit stop each. And Sam Zawisa in the pit lane, back again for a second time. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate your support here at Trackalicious in our goal to try to get to 3,000 followers. So Sam Zawisa in and out of the pits. For the first time this evening. He will drop back behind Professor Chronotis. About 10 seconds. The two Ferraris were battling on track before their pit stop cycle. But now the 42 Ferrari comfortably ahead of the number 52. Closest battle we have on track is between Alex Freeman and Andres Mostachero. Potts Weaver looming in the distance and getting closer. He's got the tire advantage compared to his rivals out in front. Can he use that fresh Pirelli rubber and close the gap and overtake the Camaro as he did before the pit stop phase? quite a variety of strategies here tonight around the whole field. So now Andres Mostachero is the meat in an Aston Martin bun sandwich. 1.5 seconds ahead to Alex Freeman and about 1.8 back to Potts Weaver. But as we mentioned, he's got that tire advantage and he's going to try to push on and try and close that gap on this stint. And 37 minutes and 30 seconds left, halfway into the broadcast. Congrats, Tyler. Well done. Spray some champagne in the air. And we will be back with you next week at the mystery track. So Eric Vanderbilt and Professor Chronotis in the pits. In the GT3's Chronotis, this will be his second time through the pit lane. So now, where will he come out relative to Kevin Yu? Kevin Yu finishing out the lap here. Professor Chronotis getting dropped and rolling out of the pits. And he will get out ahead of the 95 BMW. And pretty comfortably as well. It's a 20-second gap from Professor Chronotis to Kevin Yu as well. Sarah Liu, still no signs of the Nissan wanting to enter the pit lane. As Potts Weaver has caught right back up to Andres Mostachero. The Nissan of Moriko Yatanaki approaching as well. Hoping to dispatch the GT4s as quickly as possible. Andres drifting through Cheetah, keeping it under control though, as they go into the final corner. And as I say, there's no signs of Sarah Liu going into the pits. She does exactly that. So the 923 Nissan from the lead of the race going into the pits. The Nissan of Moriko Yatanaki goes through both GT4s, and Potts Weaver has the inside line, gets a much better exit out of the final corner, has the inside, but Diego Mostachero so confident on the brakes in the Camaro, able to hold on to that position. Devin Anthony in the Porsche follows Sarah into the pits, as Eric Vanderbilt now tries to get through the GT4 cars in his GT3 Lamborghini. This is what the Lamborghini is seeing now, as he is in the middle of this GT4 battle. And this was the exact situation we saw before the pit stops. A GT3 trying to get through Andres Mostachero up the hill, and Potts Weaver with the better grip. Now, can he get the move done around the outside? Andres Mostachero down the inside with the braking advantage and hoping to get through on this lap down the hill. This is where we saw the side-by-side contact shoot Andres Mostachero into the grass and into the gravel, but on the brakes, Professor Chronotis this time, hoping to get it done around the outside. He gets a decent exit on the power, but it's so tricky to run side-by-side through Cheetah. And Andres Mostachero out of the final corner, tries to gain all of the momentum possible. Squiddy, I am not sure about just joining for one race. I'm sure you can just sign up, join for that one, and then unregister from the session. And I don't really see any problem with that at all. The more the merrier. Justin Beachley going into the pits for the second time, as Andres Mostachero once again under heavy pressure from Potts Weaver going into Sunset. And it's through these high-speed corners where the new tires for Potts Weaver will really help him out, as Andres goes to the outside, nearly going onto the curbs, and Potts Weaver, despite being on the outside line through turn 7, gets ahead and moves up to third place in the GT4 class. Yeah, Squiddy, join the Discord and ask the managers in there, because I know that Justin Beachley out on track at the moment. Can't get a good response to you at the moment. And Sarah Liu doing the Kevin Yu strategy, and same with Devin Anthony. They come into the pits twice on their last 2 laps. So now Potts Weaver with a 6.5 second gap to Alex Freeman in his pursuit of second place. So Devin Anthony comes out behind Professor Chronotis. We saw the blue shelled Ferrari exit the final corner ahead of Potts Weaver, and he will take second place in the GT3 class. I agree, Squiddy. The racing has been quite sublime tonight. Despite the tricky conditions, there's been some great side-by-side battles in the GT3s and the GT4s. Potts Weaver doing tremendous work, already closing the gap by a second to Alex Freeman. There, the white Aston Martin just coming into picture. As a handful of drivers completing both mandatory pit stops, we still wait for a majority of the GT4 field and about half of the GT3s to come in one more time for their mandatory pit stops. Teemu Pessinen holds on to a 9.6 second lead over Alex Freeman in the GT4 class, as he has remained in the lead from starting on pole position at the start of the race. Andres Mostachero takes the early dive compared to his rivals on track into the pits, gets some new tires on the car, and now he's got the tire advantage to run to the end of the race. Ray Roman and Dr. Porkchop following him down pit lane as well. The rain continuing to pour down. As Sarah Liu with the fastest lap of the race. We'll certainly get back up to the top spot in the GT3s once Sam Zawisa completes his final pit stop of the night. Sarah Liu drifting through sunset and running wide, but keeping it all under control. Eric Vanderbilt goes into the pits as well in the number 7. Weaver doing great work closing that gap to Alex Freeman even more. It's now down to 3.5 seconds between the two Aston Martins in second and third place in the GT4s. Brief yellow flag for Ray Roman. The BMW doesn't look too scratched up. Perhaps just a moment through sunset. But he looks like he got away pretty much unscathed through that one. Ray Roman continuing on. Professor Chronotis has a good 7-second gap over Devin Anthony, who also has a 10-second gap over Kevin Yu behind. These three were running very close to each other at the front of the race, and then the pit stops kind of separated everybody out here, with Professor Chronotis being the big beneficiary. He was running down in 5th before the pit stops, and now running in 2nd of those who have completed both pit stops. We'll have to wait and see where he comes out after Sam Zawisa completes his final pit stop of the evening. Yatanashi into the pits for the final time in the East Siders Nissan. Going into the pit box and letting the crew get to work. Feels like an eternity just sitting in the pit lane waiting for the tires and the fuel to go into the car. And there is Alex Freeman following behind in the number 22 as he goes into the pits. Standing at the front of the lane, Moriko Yatanashi gets released. But where will this put Alex Freeman? He was running ahead of Andres Mostachero. Can the Camaro hold on to the track position? Just entering Sector 3 now, as Alex Freeman already dropped and rolling out of the pit lane. So the 22 able to hold onto the position ahead of Andres Mostachero. So now, as Alex Freeman has fresh tires on the car, it is up to Potts Weaver to use the fresh tires he put on at the beginning of his pit stop. Try and use the pace and close down to Alex Freeman. Still waiting for the two Firebrand Ginettas to pit. Pessinen from the lead. And Giancarlo Bottini just behind Alex Freeman here. Running in fourth at the moment. And this is technically a battle for position. Bottini can fight this as hard as he wants. Liu with a 30-second gap over Professor Carnotis in second place. That is quite a substantial margin for the grid to try and close up on the dominant drive from the 9-2-3. Still 20 minutes to go. We've seen quite a lot of action out on track. Up until this moment, some unforced errors. And the multi-class aspect always providing an element of surprise in terms of that overlap. So Bottini and Freeman battling it out, despite them having different strategies here. Want to get a little bit of racing in. Potts Weaver in the pits. It's going to be crucial for Alex Freeman to try and get a good lap in here. As Potts Weaver gets stopped in his box, letting the crew get to work as the Ginetta remains behind Alex Freeman down the hill. Look at this, Justin Beachley getting ahead of Andres Mostachero. Great comeback drive from Justin Beachley. He now has fourth place in the GT4s. And Potts Weaver out of the pit lane, and it looks like his race pace was enough in the middle stint to get ahead of Alex Freeman and get back up into the position he started this race in second. So now Alex Freeman with a fresher rubber on the car. Can he use it to his advantage and try and close down the 2-second gap he has to Potts Weaver? Bottini and Pessinen getting called into the pits. The two Ginettas getting their final pit stops done and dusted. As we just have Rally Dutchy and Sam Zawisa remaining to complete their pit stops. And as I say that, we just have Sam Zawisa remaining. As the M4 comes into the pits, or excuse me, the M6 comes into the pits. So used to seeing the M4, the M6 is just such an unfamiliar sight. But I love seeing it. So now the two Astons looking to engage in battle once more. Potts Weaver ahead of Alex Freeman. 1.7 seconds is the gap for the 22 to close on the number 13. It's still 16 minutes left on the clock. Lots of time for Alex Freeman to catch up and try and get past fellow Aston Martin driver Potts Weaver. Sam Zawisa will go out for another lap before he thinks about coming into the pits. Leading the way in the number 52. Serliu's not too far off though. Just approaching the crest of the hill, about 6 seconds behind. This is the gap from the rear wing of Potts Weaver's car to the front of Alex Freeman's Aston Martin. And he is closing in a little bit at a time, shrinking the gap to just 9/10 of a second. But he goes a little bit deep into the braking zone of turn 2, costing him precious time to the back of Potts Weaver. There's the Ginetta of Pessinen buzzing into sunset as the gap between Pessinen and Potts Weaver, 6.8 seconds. Pessinen at one point had a over 10-second gap to second place, so the two Astons able to use some good pace in that middle stint to close in on the leader, Teemu Pessinen. But is it too little too late for the pace of the Astons to try and close in on the leader? And after or on the 33rd lap of running, Sam Zawisa comes into the pits. Where will he come out? Relative to Professor Chronotis, Devin Anthony, and Kevin Yu. Those were the three cars he was battling with at the beginning of the race. The pit stops opened up the gaps, and now at the end of the race, they are shrinking right back up again. So Professor Chronotis goes down the start-finish straight. He will go through as Sam Zawisa gets dropped and is rolling out of the pit lane, releases the pit speed limiter, and onto the track he goes. Devin Anthony goes through in the Porsche to get to third place. Where will Kevin Yu go in the 95 Ferrari? He will end up behind. So Sam Zawisa with a 3-second gap to Devin Anthony to make up if he wants to sit on the podium tonight. So now, with the field completing their pit stop, Sarah Liu in the lead overall and in the GT3s. Chronotis in second, Devin Anthony in third, Sam Zawisa fourth, Kevin Yu in fifth. Then you've got Eric Vanderbilt running in sixth, Moriko Yatsunashi seventh, Jay Paisa in eighth, and Ray Roman in ninth, Rally Duchy in 10th. In the GT4s, Pessinen leads the way from Potts Weaver. Alex Freeman rounds out the podium positions. So then you've got Justin Beachley running up in fourth after dropping to the back of the grid at the start of the race. Heavy gravel moment for Potts Weaver. Really brings Alex Freeman into play. He is all over the bumper of the number 13 in front, and he's got the tire advantage. Can he make it stick into turn 2? Devin Anthony in the Porsche wants to go through as well. He's got the inside. Alex Freeman having to go the really long way around two cars, and he goes a little bit too deep for his liking there and has to build that gap back to Potts Weaver. And back through the grid, Andres Mostachero's in fifth in the GT4s. Then you've got Giancarlo Bottini in sixth, Dr. Porkchop in seventh, Niall Jacobs in eighth, and Nathan Fox stranded in the pit lane after just 17 laps of running. Under 10 minutes remaining. Can Alex Freeman catch back up to Potts Weaver? It was a 2-second gap. He's already made it up to 1.1. He's done it once. He's going to have to try and do it once more. He's run deep into turn 2 a couple of times. Can he try and get the inside line? This go around, Potts Weaver comfortably out in front to stay ahead before the braking zone. Excuse me. And so now that's the BMW of Ray Roman. Or no, excuse me, that is the 95 of Kevin Yu. Trying to work his way through the GT4 Aston Martins here. It's through Alex Freeman pretty comfortably. in the straight between turns 5 and 6. A bit more of a challenging spot. He's gonna dive down the inside. Pottsweaver is gonna be slowed down, taking that outside line. Alex Freeman will be happy to see that in front of him, though. After the pit stops, Moriko Yatanashi with a wiggle! Oh my goodness, that was a dangerous place to get a snap. Moriko Yatanashi gaining on the back of the Lamborghini of Eric Vanderbilt, but after that moment, losing all the time gained. So Moriko will have to try and claw that time back. Did a good job of closing that gap. It was around 4 seconds after the pit stop and shrunk down to 0.6, as you can see on the screen there. But that moment, losing Moriko nearly a second of time. But Eric Vanderbilt not having an easy time out in front as well. So the two Astons continuing to go at it. As the rain has been relentless tonight. Pouring down for all 75 minutes of racing. A track like Kyalami too, that is quite tricky in terms of direction changes, elevation gains, corners that are off cambered. Takes quite some skill to get around here quickly in the rain. Eric Vanderbilt ahead of the Nissan. Looking to stay ahead in the closing 5 minutes of the race. Just a handful of laps to go. Make sure to stick around after the interviews for the marble race. That will determine next week's mystery track for round number 4. Eric Vanderbilt remains out in the lead, but Moriko is really pushing hard to try and close the gap and get right on the bumper of the Lamborghini and challenge him for position. But it might be just a little bit too little, too late. Still some time left for the Nissan. Try and fight for 6th. And it's the same story for Alex Freeman if he wants to get up to 2nd place ahead of Pottsweaver. Down the main straight we go with the pair of Aston Martins. Alex Freeman just showing his nose to Potts Weaver. Closing in very well in the braking zone at turn 2. Alex Freeman closer than he was before on any previous lap to Potts Weaver. Especially in that corner, but not on this go around. Can he line up the move? And Giancarlo Bottini getting ahead of Andres Mostachero. That was for a spot in the top 5. And Bottini, even with the damage, is Andres running dry tires? Those look like yellow walled Pirelli tires on the side of the Camaro. Could that explain why he's dropped back so much? Just trying to see it out to the end on the dry tire. You compare them to the tires of Alex Freeman and Potts Weaver. They don't have that yellow branding on the side of their tires. Alex Freeman, yes, does have that yellow insert, but that is a color on the wheel, not on the tire itself. Kevin Yu in the BMW getting very close to Sam Zawisa here at the end, closing the gap to about 1 second as Sarah Liu starts the final lap of the race as the race leader. Just looking to bring it home for 2.8 miles. 16 corners separate her from the checkered flag, and another race win added to Sarah Liu's pocket. So now 1 lap left for a majority of the field to try and get their final position set. Kevin Yu drops back to about 1.3 seconds now behind Zawisa. As Andres Mostachero struggling for grip. Looks to get out of the way of the battling GT3s. Sarah Liu hasn't seen much action from the beginning of the race. Oh my goodness, Moriko Yatanashi facing the wrong way. As race leader, Sarah Liu gets through the final few corners for the last time in round number 3 to take the race win in the 923 Blade Runner Nissan. Checkered flag waving ahead, and it's the race win for Sarah Liu after 41 laps of running. A majority of that in the lead. She converts a pole position to a victory. Moriko Yatanashi across the line in 7th, Jay Paisa in 8th place. Justin Beachley recovering up to 4th after his incident on the opening lap. Professor Chronotis will take the second step of the podium in the GT3s in the number 42, with Devin Anthony trying to hold off Sam Zawisa. In fact, the 42 or the 52 Ferrari, had a pretty good charge at the end there to finish within 2 seconds, but it's Devin Anthony who will cap off the GT3 podium. Sam Zawisa in 4th, Kevin Yu rounds out the top 5. And now Pessinen taking the curb very heavily at Cheetah. He, in a similar situation to Sarah Liu, had a good gap opening up at the beginning of the race and also turned pole position into win in the GT4 class. Well done, Teemu, for that performance. And Pottsweaver converts his front row start into 2nd place with Alex Freeman in 3rd, providing us with a great deal of action from start to finish. Eric Vanderbilt finishes the on-track action in the number 7. He gets a 6th place finish. He was able to hold off the pressure thrown his way by Moriko Yatanashi. So Sarah Liu on top, Carnotis in 2nd, Devin Anthony in 3rd, Sam Zawisa in 4th, Kevin Yu in 5th, Eric Vanderbilt. Next, then you got Moriko Yatanashi, Jay Paisa, Roman, and Rally Dutchy in the GT3s. Pessinen takes the win in the GT4s, Pottsweaver 2nd, Alex Freeman in 3rd, then you got Justin Beachley. Bottini rounds out the top 5.
Green light. Go, go, go.
And that is all I can remember. The top 3, please join us in the green room for a quick chat of how your guys' race went on. We would love to hear from you. Teemu's here, he's ready to go. We'll bring in Teemu, welcome in, and Potts, welcome in, gents. Teemu, well done on the race win. How it seemed pretty stressless up there for you. Was it that?
At the same time, yes and no, because we I don't know about you, Potts, but we ran no tire change. We didn't change tires at all, so towards the end I was like slightly struggling with tires, so I was just looking at the timer and I was worried about like every pit stop I exited pits like 5 to 10 seconds ahead of P2 and P3. So it was scary.
Yeah,
oh,
that's
yeah,
a nice strap. I took tires once on the first pit. I waited a little longer to take my first pit, so I tried to do like half the race on a set of tires. But that was the difference. I think you got me by 5 seconds, so you did it.
Yeah, it was around that.
Yeah, it was right around 5 seconds at the end. I was also kind of looking at that gap, and it just kept closing and closing and closing. But yeah, you were able to hold off and get the race win here tonight. So well done on that. But Alex Freeman and Potts, you guys were battling for pretty much that whole race.
Dude, I was sweating so hard. Nice job, Alex.
Yeah, same here. First stint, kind of sandwiched between you and Andres.
Yeah, Andres put up he was in the Camaro, I believe. He put up a heck of a fight. He definitely defended well, and I tapped him in the rear a couple times just because I wasn't familiar with his racing line with the Camaro. So hopefully he's not too mad about that. But it was enough to put me behind a little bit and give Teemu the win.
Oh that first stint just kind of stuck behind Andres. I couldn't, I was having trouble finding my braking points, especially in sector 2, like all of the S's. So that kind of necessitated the early stop just to get some clear track. Luckily, I timed it right and got out just behind the GT3 train. So I think that got me on the podium that got me up to P2 for a little bit. So.
Nice. Did you take tires at all?
I did. I was trying to go no tires, and then with about 25 minutes left, it just started understeering a little bit, and I just decided to go get some tires just to, I didn't want to be a sitting duck. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I can't blame you there at all. And so, yeah, the bold call from the Firebrand team to not go for the tire switch paid off in the end by right about 5 seconds.
It was a risk, but I calculated one because it was like the last 15 minutes after like the second pit stop where I started feeling it a little bit. So I was like, okay, I can manage 15 minutes with slightly worn tires. So
yeah,
good race.
You did. Yeah, I
Good
was
race.
about to say
a lot of fun.
exactly that. You guys are doing the interviews for me. Well done to you guys. Thank you for doing that, because I got to set up this marble race. So yeah, cheers to you guys for both getting the podium positions, asking some good questions, and yeah, good luck next week at We'll See Where. Coming up in a little bit here. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time. Tamu, I know it's a little bit late for you, but yeah, thank you for taking the time to chat to us.
It's early, not late. It's 6 in the
Fair,
morning,
yeah,
so
fair enough.
I have school in about 3 hours, so I get to take a small nap and head out.
Well, the Firebrand, happy to see you and out on top tonight. Congrats, you guys, once again for getting the podiums tonight. We'll be back here to the green room, providing us with a great bit of action as well. We've got a pretty shy GT3 field. They don't want to come chat, but that's fine. I don't mind that one bit. And so that will bring us into the marble race to determine the grid. Or the next event at round number 4. 18 tracks on offer. Let's switch it over to the race. Per Professor Chronotis' request, we have a random track selected. So we will see how this goes. And just exactly who will end up on top in this one, let's take a look and get this race started. And away we go. What is happening here? The beaker is spilling, slowly releasing the marbles into the track. Currently, it's Misano in the race lead, ahead of Paul Ricard. Zandvoort holding on to the podium positions, but it might yet change. It looks like there's multiple paths we can take, because Monza is going to end out almost up in front. And in fact, it is Monza that ends up out in front after the run down the tubes, and up the spiral we go. And into the dam. And onto the barriers of justice. And speaking of barriers of justice, Bathurst takes the lead in this marble race as we head down the tunnel, or down the chute, I should say, into the sink. Monza retakes the lead, and Nürburgring now with a flash up to the front and down the spiral. Here we go. At the moment, the Nürburgring remains out in front, but will it be that way to the end? Laguna taking a different line and going down the chute. Bathurst has died, so it won't be Bathurst, that's for sure. And going into the chute, or into the, I don't even know what to call it, the revolving door, Monza gets through unscathed and gets up the spiral. Will it be Monza who takes the race lead to the end? Alton Park slowly but surely. No, Monza falls off. It's the Hungaroring that stays alive, and into the second set of revolving doors we go. Misano powers through, but it's the Hungaroring who officially claims the victory. So the Hungaroring will be the destination for round number 4 next week for the Multiclass Championship. And we will have another one of these to determine the season finale as well. Back to the studio we go. And that will conclude our coverage for round number 3 tonight in the Multiclass Championship at Kyalami. Stick around for the stream tomorrow of iRacing. They have the LMDH and GT3 Championship underway, where on Friday we go to LMU in a similar format where they have the hypercars and the GT3s. Also doing some 75-minute races on their Fridays. Saturday we get a nice little break before going into the MX5 Cups on Sundays. Mondays we go to the rookies randomly selected track at Snetterton on Monday. And on Tuesday, we go into round number 6 for the GT3 LMU Sprint Championship. And next week, we have round 4 for the Wednesday Multiclass. So make sure to stick around and catch all of the coverage here on Twitch and sometimes YouTube, depending on who is streaming. But tonight, please stick around for the raid. We are going to give a good little preview on what you can expect from the Sunday series at Trackalicious. We're going to raid MX5 all day. So thank you all for watching along with us tonight, and racers, thank you for providing so much on-track action at that wet Kyalami here in round number 3. Stick around for the raid. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time. Have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you may be watching. Stay safe.